Hello and welcome to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Danny Vittori, and today we have on a very special guest, the Superintendent of Lynn Public Schools, Dr. Evonne Alvarez. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. So I'll jump right in. You've been in the role for about a year and a half or so. What would you say are some of your accomplishments or things you're really proud of?
So I started March 1st in a transition period through the end of June, and my official start date was July 1st of 23. I think that, personally and as a team, really bringing a very clear vision of what are the structures and systems that we really needed to take a deeper look at to ensure that all students were succeeding and achieving. And I think that being proud of a number of things, from policy changes to a different delivery of professional development in terms of looking at pedagogy, which is how we teach versus what we are teaching. Okay. Our teachers are professionals and they know the material. It's the delivery of instruction that matters, because our students have changed dramatically in the last couple of years. In 2019, we were, according to our data, just a little over 30% Latino students, and currently we're over 75%.
Wow.
So it's a dramatic change, and it also requires us to look at the methods we're using to reach those students.
One thing you had mentioned too was Rosetta Stone, which really addresses sometimes the language barriers that can come up between students and teachers.
Definitely. So one of the challenges that we have, particularly in the elementary schools, but across K-12, is the amount of time that we have to teach language acquisition. So Rosetta Stone was just intended to support students in spending time learning language.
So students and teachers can use it?
It's students, the teachers, all staff, and student parents, the parents of all the students. Yeah.
I'm curious for you, since you oversee so many schools, how do you balance it between working with administrators, teachers, sometimes students? How does that work?
It's all about priorities, right? And currently, our priority is what is instruction. Having on grade level instruction is the top priority at the moment. Unfortunately, when we started the year, we had 14 schools that were identified in need of assistance. And recently, at the beginning of the month, we were notified that Lynn was underperforming in the state, in the bottom 10%. So that requires us to look at what are those changes that we need to make, being the priority, obviously, to ensure that we exit that category.
Definitely. And one thing that I know you do and your whole team does is a big thing is visibility. I've seen you on several panels, you've met with students, spoken to them. Why is the visibility piece so important in, trying to get out of that category?
Primarily because in that period of sort of transition and observation that I started right before my official start, including teacher voice and student voice was a big wondering for me. Like, where was that voice? And so this year we started an elementary teachers cabinet, a secondary teacher cabinet, and a student advisory cabinet, which is comprised of 10 high school students.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so we meet monthly, and we talk about all of the ongoing, not only issues, they shape most of the agenda and what the topics that they want to cover or ask and inquire. And then obviously I add in like what is happening this month. If we're working on a specific policy through a committee, I share it with them for feedback. If we have particular situations that are specific to our school district, I share it with them for feedback and input. It is the student experience that matters, and who better to tell us also than the students, but the teachers who are with them every day and are in the classrooms living this experience day to day. So,
really including the people on the ground, so to speak,
yes.
living it every day, having that experience.
Correct. Yes.
And I will ask, you said you've lived in Massachusetts for a couple of years, or about 3 years now, 4 years?
Close to 3 years, yes.
Mm-hmm. And what drew you to this position when you saw that it was open?
So definitely the demographics of the student body across the district was where my experience lies. Mm-hmm. I worked for almost 27 years in a very large school district, the fourth largest in the country, that was predominantly majority minority, both Latino and Black. So I know, and it was a high performing district, wasn't always a high performing district. And I was, I went through those changes as a teacher, as an administrator, and I know it can be done. And so when I saw the opportunity that perhaps Lynn needed my skills and, vice versa, mm-hmm. I was excited to interview to see if this was the right place.
Mm-hmm. And you're also the first Latino superintendent in Lynn, which is a huge milestone. Do you think about that at all?
I do. I think about what it means for our students. And they don't let me forget it, because when I walk classrooms and I walk in and I say good morning, and I ask them a couple of questions, and then I say that the same thing in Spanish, generally students are in awe, and they respond obviously, but that's not what they're used to. And I think it's vitally important that, especially to feel included when the majority of our staff does not represent who they are, right?
Right.
And representation obviously is very important.
And them getting to see someone who looks like them in that position and saying, well, I could do that. I could get up to there.
Absolutely. And I always tell them they can. And they always ask me if I'm a real doctor, especially the little ones. It's a great story to tell.
I love when little kids ask questions, because they just ask.
Yeah. I say, yes, I am a doctor, and you can be one too, but I can't actually fix you or do anything like a real doctor. And they're like, we go on and we have that conversation. But I think it's important for them to know that they can do anything they want to do in life.
Mm-hmm. Definitely building that up, going through that. And a little bit on that note, one very large project you now have going on is a new middle school. So wanting to build that, going through that process, how have students or staff been reacting to that?
Well, certainly it's very exciting. I walked into that sort of. The project, had been at a standstill in terms of the funding process, and there was a very large team of very committed individuals across the city who have been on that, building committee. So the project will start moving forward, as we speak, mm-hmm. and is projected to conclude and have the building open in 26-27.
Like you said, that's great, giving them more opportunities, hearing student voice, and going forward with the agenda that you mentioned, increasing instruction, which helps to have updated facilities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And leveling the overcrowding that we have in the middle schools.
Definitely. And one of the last questions I'll ask, I know it's a more difficult topic, and I know KIPP is not under your jurisdiction as a charter school, but in terms of the public schools, what sort of safety measures have you put in place for people concerned about the violence?
That's a great question. So when we started school back in September, we started with a committee to focus really on safety across all of our campuses. We're currently in the process we've invested in a system called Verkada. Verkada is a security system that locks doors automatically, that has basically camera and recognition right, of persons that may walk into a building that are unauthorized to be there, as well as looking at our incidents across our campuses and what were they. Typically, in the 6 through 12 environment, we have a number of students that make poor choices and need to be supported in how they move forward. So in looking at those numbers, they had increased dramatically over the last couple of years. And it was really time to take a look with a team of secondary educators at what measures could we put in place. And one of those was we created a policy called protective sweeps. And those are different than the regular canine sweeps that had been done in the past and that we've continued to do. But the protective sweeps are more about administrators just doing random checks in common areas and making sure and ensuring that there is a safe environment for students to learn in. The safety of our staff and our students is a priority, and we will continue to focus on that. We do not want safety to be, or fear to be the focus of a student's day of learning.
No, you want them to focus on, like you said, learning.
Right.
And I'll try to wrap it up on a more positive note. Looking forward, is there anything that you're really looking forward to, or certain projects moving forward?
Definitely, we're doing a number of, we're investing in a number of projects, not just facilities-wise to expand programming, but also one of those being a STEAM academy, which would be a 6 through 12, and would support the leveling of our middle and high school populations to be able to use the Fecto Leary building to lessen the overcrowding in our traditional high schools.
Great. That all sounds fantastic. And I know I have to wrap up now, but I want to thank you again for coming on to talk about all these important issues.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time today.
Of course. Anytime. And once again, I'm Danny Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests.